Alright guys, I still don't quite have my voice back, so another video lesson for today. On Thursday and Friday, you should have set up your Pong game. That should have required you to do a horizontal arrangement, which I set at 10% and 98%. That's right here. Inside there, so far I have a timer label and a score label. I'm also going to drag out 2 buttons for that horizontal arrangement. Button 1, I'm going to rename to Start and change the text for button 1 to say Start as well. And button 2 is going to be called Reset. I'm going to change the text over here. Okay, so I have a timer, a score, a start, and a reset. Change my height to 10%. My width can be like 15. Whatever fits on my screen is fine. Now, if you didn't set your sizes when you first built this, you need to make sure that this is on tablet size, and you have to make sure that your screen 1 is on portrait. This game cannot be rotated. It has to be played up and down. Whether you're testing on a tablet or on your iPad, it has to be tested like this. Otherwise, your puck is not going to bounce correctly on your screen. You should have added a canvas last class. Now your canvas should take up the majority of the rest of your page. And then we're going to put some new things on here that we haven't used before. Underneath drawing and animation, we're going to grab an image sprite. I'm going to put this one kind of near the top of my canvas. This is my image sprite 1, and I'm going to rename that puck. That's going to be my hockey puck. I'm going to grab a second image sprite. It's going to come down kind of near the bottom of my screen. This one is going to be my hockey stick, so I'm going to name this one Stick. Now that I have my image sprites on here, and I've already uploaded my media last class, I can look and say, okay, this is my background. So canvas 1 has the background image of 2, 3, 4. For me, yours is probably different. My puck preview. Okay, so I know 2, 3, 5 is the stick, so I'm going to attach the image to this. And that means my puck is the last one. Super important that you check this on your tablet. And look at my puck here. You can see the green bounding box going around it, and that is way too big because it's the bounding boxes that will cause your sprites to react with each other, not the image itself. So before I can go any further, I need to edit this picture to make sure that the bounding box is a heck of a lot smaller. So I'm going to pause for a minute. I'm going to look at my stick as well. The bounding box on the stick isn't too bad because I only really need the top of it, but I'll probably crop this in tighter too before I go to the next step. So make sure that when you bring your sprites in, that you're cropped in nice and tight. All right, so I edited my pictures so you can see the bounding box is a lot tighter on the puck and the stick. And since I edited them, I had to re-upload them. Figured might as well name them what I need them to be here. And I reattached the pictures, so now they're correct on there. Now, of course, this is way too big. So I'm going to go and change my height and width here. I'm going to go with like 25 pixels on my height and my width to start. That made it kind of small, but I mean, if you look at the size of the net on my background, that looks pretty good. Now the stick is going to be at the bottom of the screen, and it's going to slide back and forth left and right with my finger. So I need there to be a way for the puck to be able to go off the screen. So the stick has to be a lot less wide. So I'm going to change the width of my stick. Let's try 50 to start. That shrunk way too small. So I'm going to try 150. That's more like it. So depending on what you're using for your image sprites will depend on the size that you need it to be here. My height, I'm going to go ahead and change that to 50. All right, so I've got my puck and I've got my stick. Those are both image sprites. I am good to go on that. So now I'm going to go to my blocks. This game has a scoreboard and a timer, and those are both variables. So for my variables, I'm going to go to my variables tab, and I'm going to grab the top one that says initialize global name. And I need to rename these to be the variables that I want to use. So one is going to be called timer, and I'm going to grab a second one, and that's going to be score. So what I'm doing here is telling App Inventor, hey, I've got two things that are going to change as the game goes on. I have to tell them under the initialize where I want them to start. I want my game to have a 30-second timer. So I'm going to go 30 here. And I want my score to start at 0. So I initialize my global score to 0. The next thing I want to do is tell my game that I want to drag the stick around the screen with my finger. So I'm going to go down and find my stick image sprite. And I'm going to say when stick dragged. And I'm going to say call that stick to move to XY. Now, I don't want my stick to be able to leave the bottom of the screen. I only want it to go left and right. I don't want it to be able to move up and down. So my Y component is just stick Y. It's whatever my stick is currently at. I never want it to leave that for the Y. Suppose here. I do want it to cover and follow where my finger currently is though. So that's the current X that we used in the coloring book as well. Now, if you test this on your tablet, you should be able to move your stick left and right now. Your timer's still not going to show, your scoreboard's not going to show, but your stick is going to move side to side. One more thing to code on this video is our start button, what we want it to actually do when we start the game. So when start click, we need to tell it that we want our puck to have a heading that is randomly assigned to start moving on the screen. So we're going to set puck heading. And then we're going to go up to math, and we want it to be randomized. So we're looking for a random integer. And then these numbers are based on how wide your screen is. What will work best for all of us, because we're testing on different devices, what works the best most of the time is a 30 and a 50. The second thing we need to do is tell App Inventor how fast we want that puck location to refresh on the screen. So I'm going to go back to puck, and I'm going to say set puck interval to, and we're going to put the interval at 10. This is a number that you can mess with later, depending on how difficult you want your game to be. Now we're going to tell the puck how fast to go. So we're going to set puck speed. And then we're going to set it to a 5. A 5 is a pretty good speed for you to get used to using. And then once again, once you want to make your game either more difficult or easier, you can change that speed to something else. When you bring this up to get graded, you really shouldn't have it any faster than a 5 to start the game, because we won't be able to beat it to give you a grade if you bump it up too high. Two more things we're going to do. We don't want the puck to always move on the screen. We only want it to move when we press the start button, which means we're going to set the puck enabled, which is the second green one down. And we're going to go to logic. And we're going to say true. That means that somewhere else in this, we're also going to tell the puck enabled to be false. Mine does not want to grab. There we go. Puck enabled true. And then since we're going to have a timer on here, we're also going to have a clock. Go back to your designer real quick. We have a timer here, but the timer doesn't do anything without having a sensor, which is a clock. And it's an invisible component. So we're going to grab that clock and just drop it anywhere on the screen. Comes down here to be non-visible. but it does make it so that under here we now have clock, and we can do clock 1, timer enabled, true. Kind of near the bottom. There's my true. And now my start button will work and my stick will drag on the screen. Those are the first chunks of code that you have to have for this game before we start making everything actually play.